anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack HM Wong.
Welcome to Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. I'm your host, Jack Wong, Amazon best-selling author of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. I've been planning these podcast shows in the last 6 months, and finally, episode 1 is born. Whether you are in Singapore or any parts of the world, my message is very straightforward one. If you are an employee who is looking to get out of the rat race so that you are able to regain your money and time freedom, my message to you is you can always start any business, any point, anywhere, and anyhow. Unlike millennials, I started my own business, my first business, only at the age of 42, and I'm now 48. So guess what? You do not need to wait like my age to start your business. In fact, in my book, I mentioned Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC. He started his business, the KFC business, when he was 65 years old. So you can do the same. I'm not saying that you will start your business at the age of 65. You can always think of how to do it. And the purpose of this podcast show is to give you the resources so that you know what are the ingredients, what are the essential components of a business. Whether it relates to sales, marketing, production, you talk about personal branding, passion, purpose, the personal development part. There's so many ingredients or components of a business which I'm going to use the future episodes to bring them on so that you are able to make sense out of it. And if they are useful to you, use them. If they are not, just take that as a learning experience. Have an open heart and a willing mind. You'll be okay. So for people who are already an existing business owner, congratulations, you have already started a business. My job in my podcast show is to help you gain further resources so that you are able to take your business to the next level. I don't know which is your current level right now, and I don't know what is your next level to be. I know one thing, success is not the destination, it is a process. So long as you are able to take action every single day, knowing the direction you're heading to, you're on the path of success. So let me guide you along. Allow me to be your coach in this podcast show. And if you want to ask any question, there will always be a contact information towards the end of the show so that we are able to stay connected. Well, I started this thought of having a podcast show not long ago, in fact 6 months ago, because I was a trainer and I am still a speaker. What I noticed is that many times my friends who are trainers and speakers are focusing so much on live events. And what happened is that because of the physical location limit, let's say I'm in Singapore, I can only impact, influence, and inspire people in Singapore. And that's what live training is about. Of course, people can fly into Singapore to learn, but it is time consuming. It also costs a lot of money to travel around. So I learned that while having a podcast show allows me to reach out to more people, not just people in Singapore, but beyond Singapore, probably around the region, or take a higher level, maybe different parts of the world. So that is actually the reason why I wanted to start the podcast show. And I didn't know how to do that. So what I've done is I learned from existing podcast show hosts and learn from them. I've been to at least 10, 15 podcast shows, learning the art and the science of using what I've learned from these people, I'm now able to start my show. So you know what? I'm always here learning new things, just like people who told me if they don't know how to start a business, well, always ask around, always learn from other people who have already done that and have been there before. So that is the essence of a business. Okay, so let me give you some ideas of what you can expect in the future episodes of the podcast shows. Number one, I'm going to bring on to the plate some of my own experiences as a start of how I started the business, how I actually start from ground zero. And the story is very amazing. Even though I decided to jump out of the plane at the age of 42, from the corporate world to the entrepreneurial world, I had no clients. I had no business plan. It was a super risky mode. And I always tell my clients, like you who want to start a business, never ever follow my path. So that's the essence of the first few episodes. How I got my clients, how I got opportunities in terms of consulting work, training work, and some other kinds of work. And how do I keep up with myself in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the tools, the techniques that I need as a business owner. In the first few episodes, this is what I'm going to do. And I do have plans to bring along some of my important people in my life. Some of them are my coaches. Some of them are my very important business partners. And some of them are actually the podcast show hosts where I have been to their show and I promised them when I start my podcast show, I'll bring them to my show and let them share with you their experiences. So there are lots of things I'm planning. I'm very, very excited about this. So I hope that you will subscribe to the podcast show. You are able to learn a lot. And I strongly believe that if you are able to keep your open heart and a willing mind, you will be able to learn a lot. And remember one thing, the moment you say, I know that, these three words are very dangerous words in my dictionary. As a principle of entrepreneurship, I have actually got a lot of such entrepreneurship principle. Be a learner versus a knower. Knower spells Knower. So be a knower means that I know and I already know, which means that no matter whether you are going to learn new things, because you already said to yourself, I know that. And guess what happened to your mind? Your mind will be closed off, will be shutting down. And therefore, I want you to think about being a learner instead, even though such information to be presented to you mayhap seems to be familiar, or you may have heard somewhere. I'm going to share with you information and experiences from my perspective. And therefore, that makes this sharing unique in that sense. So, be a learner allows you to tap on my experiences. I'm not saying that these experiences will be useful to you. Well, obviously, they are useful to me. Otherwise, I won't be sharing. So, be a learner is important than being a knower. The second principle, which is very important in entrepreneurship journey, is what I will call be willing to make mistakes. Why? Because making mistakes is not allowable in school. Interestingly, I just had a conversation with someone who is unwilling to tap on or to explore something that are unfamiliar to the person. And what happened was that he said, I am afraid of making mistakes. Well, guess what? Thank you to the school system. Thank you to the school system, the traditional school system, whereby they have taught all of us the beauty of being right and not making any mistake. Because why? Making mistakes results in punishment. When you make mistake at home, your parents will punish you. When you remember that. When you make mistake in school, your teacher will punish you. In the worst case scenario, when you make mistakes in universities, well, sometimes that may result in a fail, and sometimes you might be expelled from the university. So the consequences might seem to be disastrous in that sense. So unfortunately, when you decide to step out of your comfort zone, move into the entrepreneurial world, the important lessons that you must be accept is the willingness to make mistakes. Why? Because mistakes equal money-making opportunities. Mistake equals money-making opportunities. It's something that I've learned from my mentor, Robert Kiyosaki, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mistakes makes money. This is very important. Do you want to make money or make sense? This is what Robert Kiyosaki says. So I learned from him the idea that, well, nobody is going to be perfect. Me, I made a lot of mistakes in my first few years of my entrepreneurship journey until I stepped into the zone, the shoes of knowing how to tackle those mistakes. That is, I have fortunately received coaching support. So my coach actually taught me one key thing. Mistakes will be happening. So would you want to learn from your own mistakes, or would you want to learn from other people's mistakes? Which one would you prefer? Obviously, if I have to make the mistakes, then so be it. I just have to accept that. But what if you are able to learn from other people's mistakes? And you know what the beauty is? Yes, the beauty is that it will not cost you any money. So my coach says, the smart people learn from their own mistakes. The genius, on the other hand, learn from other people's mistakes. So these podcast shows, which I'm going to share with you, lots of information, lots of useful insights, allows you to learn from my own mistakes. So is that good or is that good? Right? So in future episodes, I'm going to share with you lots of things. So please make sure you subscribe to my podcast shows. And please share with your friends, your business colleagues, your business partners, and anyone who are thinking of going into the business, the importance of subscribing to this podcast. I look forward to sharing with you more lessons, and more importantly, one day, I hope that we'll be able to meet physically or virtually, and I can't wait for that day to happen. Meanwhile, stay in touch with me. Stay in touch with the podcast show, and I bet you are going to learn a lot. So this is the first episode, which is by way of an introduction of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. And once again, thank you for listening to me, and I can't wait to serving you in future episodes. That's all for this episode, and once again, thank you. Jack Wong here. I'm signing off. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.
To continue cracking the entrepreneur code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneur.com. Learn more about author and host Jack HM Wong and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwong.com/apply.